Hey, what is going on, guys? So it's Char month this month, and as promised, I'm going to be working on making Char's DJ here with the HGUC Dijeh. Basically, wanted to use the HGUC because with using the RE100 kit, I would have to get a hold of some sort of 100 scale version of the gray boosters for the backpack. But anyway, the HG is going to be the easier option, so we're going to use the HG. We've got pretty much everything that we need, and it should be pretty easy to put together. There's just a little bit of modification we need to do. So first off, in case any of you are unfamiliar with Char's DJ, here is what it looks like. Basically, it's just a Char's colored version DJ, and it has some new equipment on it. It's from the MSVR manga Return of Johnny Ridden, and basically it was just used to test the Psycho Frame cockpit in there. So it's got on the back the gray binders from the Schuzrum DS. On its arms, it's got the shields from the Geara Doga. It's got two of those. It also uses the Geara Doga's beam rifle, or the beam rifle that would later be used with the Geara Doga. And one thing about the design that I'm not going to worry about on this one is the thrusters coming off like the vents on the side of the leg. I'm just not really into the look of that at all. It just looks kind of stupid, just like the thruster bells sticking out of that part there on the side of the leg. So I'm not going to worry about that. Alright, so let's look at the kit and talk about what we need. So first off, from the HGUC Schuzrum DS, we have the backpack that we're going to have to modify. That I think that's going to be the part that's going to require the most modification, but even still not really a whole lot. But we are going to have to figure out a way to get the backpack onto there. Not really too difficult. We've got the beam rifle from the Geara Doga. That's going to be going with that just to test it out. Let's see if without any modification if it can hold on to here. And it doesn't quite fit in the hand, so we'll have to modify the handle of this a little bit. That shouldn't be too difficult either. And then it doesn't have anything on the shoulders, so we're going to get rid of these parts here. And this one over on this shoulder, I'll have to take apart the shoulder a little bit more to get to it. But so basically, it just needs to have nothing on the shoulders. And then we've got the two shields here. I've got one from both versions of the HG Geara Doga. So basically, just gonna have to mount these onto the side of his forearms. Again, shouldn't really be too much more difficult other than just drilling a hole in there, I imagine. So that should be pretty simple. Why don't we work on the arms first, since that seems like it's going to be kind of the easiest part. The rest of the body is not going to take any modification at all, except for I think I might be replacing the tubes. So on the back of the head, back up here, and then on the back of the legs, we've got some tubes there. There's those soft rubber parts that are just kind of a little bit more difficult to paint. So just to make my life easier, I'm thinking I'm going to replace those with some springs that also give it a little bit different look as well. So we'll come to that bridge a little bit later. Let's just talk about the arms here first. Alright, so all I've done for the time being is taken that part out of the shoulder, which connects the different parts on both arms. So now they're both the same. They both have just this same detail up inside of there like that. And I'm contemplating what I want to do with that, whether I want to fill in this part or what I really want to do with that. I've decided for now I'm just going to leave it like that. There's a little seam line here. I'm just going to get rid of that seam line. And then I have an idea for what I want to do with this, but we'll talk more about that later on in the process, because it's something I'll get to later on once some more of like the main parts are done. So for now, basically just we need to attach the shield onto here. It's really going to be as simple as you just have this hole here, just drilling a hole here in the back of the arm, and then that is just going to fit right onto there and just right over the side of the arm like that, no problem. So not going to need this connector here on the back, so we can just go ahead and get rid of that. And then the other problem with the forearm here is that there is a seam line on this part right here. Now, gluing that would mean I would have to permanently fix the elbow joint into there, or modify the elbow joint to be able to put in there before painting it. This part here on the top of the forearm, that comes off just like that. These other parts come off. Take everything off too like that. So this part here, I would have to modify that to be able to fit into there if I'm going to close up the seam line. But what I'm going to do is just not close up that seam line for a couple reasons. Number one, it is going to be here on the back like of the shield, so it's going to be pretty hidden and where no one's going to really see it anyway. But what we're going to do is just convert that to a panel line rather than a seam line. So I've just got my edge scriber. I'm forgetting what it's called at the moment, but basically you can just run this on the edge of a part, and it just makes that into just like a panel line detail. So it's two-sided. One side is 0.3 millimeters, the other side is 0.6 millimeters. We're going to use the 0.3 millimeters because we just need it pretty small. 0.6 might be better for like a master grade 100 scale size. But just real gently run this across the part, and then just kind of turn it and go both ways. Just give that a little sanding on the edge so we can see how that's going to look, and just to make it a little bit easier for you guys to see as well. There we go. Now it's filled with dust, a little bit easier to see. There's our seam line now turned into a panel line. So easy enough. Now the drilling. This part here on the back of the elbow is where I want to drill into. Now I can't go too deep, because if I drill too deep, I'm going to drill into this joint part there. So I don't need to go that far. But as you can see, this elbow part just fits into there. I want to basically drill right into the center of that. So I basically have like a direct line from the center of these circles through to the center of this part here. So it'll be like right in the center, like about there. And then just go ahead and drill it out. It's gonna end up looking like this. Then just our connection part should just fit straight onto there. Now at the moment, it can't go in all the way, so it's just gonna be out to there. So what I'm gonna do is I have to cut that peg, and you can see what's clashing is the inner part of the connector and the side of the arm there. So I can cut out the inner part of that a little bit, and also cut the peg a little bit shorter so that that's going to be sitting closer to the arm. But for the time being, at least you can get the idea. It's almost there anyway, so it'll be a little bit closer to the arm ultimately, but it's attached onto there, and it's definitely going to be a little bit heavy. So once everything, you know, is painted and all that, everything's going to be stiffened up a little bit. But yeah, the shield, that's pretty much taken care of. So let's get on to the backpack. Backpack is the other part that's going to require the most amount of work on here, as the head just kind of pops off there like that. That's fun. Alright, so I've got the two backpacks here. With the DJ's backpack, I've just removed the wing bits, which are kind of attached in the center there. And so we are going to need to basically keep the beam pistols, as it's supposed to have that. I am going to keep that detail. And we need the binders here, of course. So this whole rigging part inside of there, we don't really particularly need, because according to this artwork, official artwork, this is an image of the resin garage kit of that, which as far as I know is accurate to how it technically should be in canon. But again, this model is not, I'm not worried about 100% accuracy, because it's a really obscure design anyway. I think really small details are open to interpretation. So anyway, basically I want to just keep pretty much all of this, because it is supposed to have these binders, or these like thruster pods there, and it is supposed to have this center part there, which is also important because that's where the tubes piping from the back of the head goes back down into there. But I think essentially what I can do is attach the beam pistols on this inside part here, kind of like this, this gap here between the center part and this part there. There's enough space to attach the beam pistols in there. How these attach into this backpack is that there's that little peg there, and on here there's that little hook bit that just hooks onto that peg up inside of there. So it just goes up and into there like that, and that's actually a polycap, strangely enough. But what I can do is basically just recreate that peg just using a piece of runner, probably, which is just a 3mm peg of runner. So we'll just take off this part here. On the side of here, we'll just plug in a piece of runner there, and then this will just clip onto that just like it does on the original backpack, but it'll just be an actual piece of plastic rather than a polycap, and it wouldn't really matter too much anyway. As for the binders, we need to take a little bit more of this apart in order to get to that. Alright, so once we got them out of here, this is the part that will hold the binder. So it's nothing really too crazy. Basically, I could, again, just use a just straight up peg just out the side of here and just peg it straight into there. But I am going to use this part, and basically just going to sand this part flat so that that can be just glued on. That can just be glued onto the side of there, and then it'll just be connected onto the side of this bit. So again, with the resin kit, it works a little bit differently. There's like this contraption coming out the bottom on like these mechanical arms that hold it onto there. Not really necessary. I suppose I could do that with some other different parts or something. And as for these weapon connectors here on the outside of the binders, we're not going to need those, so we're just going to clip that off as well and sand that smooth. So now that we've got our plan, let's enact it. Let's try mounting the beam pistols in here first. First thing about them, the gap where they need to fit in is a little bit narrow, so I need to make this a little bit narrower. So you can see it's got these little vents here like on the side of the beam pistols. I'm just going to file those down, just get rid of those, just to make this thin enough so that they're going to fit in there where they need to be. Just whip out the flat file and just file that down. Okay, that's looking better. Now it also has this little part here out the back that's kind of used as a guide for the left and right side. Not also going to need that, so just going to cut that off as well, just because just not necessary and getting in the way. So clean that up here as well. Now these do also have a seam line on there, so I'll just glue and sand that later on just to get rid of that seam line. But for the time being, we can test out now if this is looking a little bit thinner, if that's going to be fitting in there much better. And yeah, that's fitting in there much better now, so that'll fit straight into there. Now we need to figure out where the placement is going to be, so then we can put our new peg into these thruster pods here. I'm going to use a pencil to mark that just to make it easier to see the pencil marking. I'm just going to give it a little bit of sanding here first. Pencil will be easier to write on there with a little bit sanded surface. So I figured out about where I want that there, and gone ahead and marked that spot with a little pencil. Just going to drill that out, and then we'll set in our peg. Alright, so now those pegs are set in there. Just cut that off a runner and just glued in with some Tamiya thin cement. Now to mount these guys for the binders there onto the side. Now I was thinking like put them together, and I forgot what my original plan, what I thought of before, was actually to put them onto the side of here. So where we cut off that little hook that is meant to like hook on the weapons, the rifle or the bazooka, onto the back of the DJ. And then we just have this part here, so I'm going to connect the connector part for the binder, just glue that onto the side of there. So that should be easy enough, but basically what I need to do is just make this into a flat surface. So here we've got these like two little rectangular bits. I want to cut the larger one down so that they're just flat, or close to that anyway, and then I'm just going to file this until it's a nice flat surface between the two of those. Alright, so then those backpack parts are pretty much done for the moment. Just gonna give that some time for the glue to dry, and then we can clean that up like everything else. The last thing we need to work on here for like major modifications is to make sure that it can actually hold the beam rifle. So basically what it is just that this hand is a little bit too small for this beam rifle handle. So as you can see, this part here, it just doesn't really quite fit on there. So basically what we're gonna do is just make this handle a little bit thinner, as I'm just going to basically shave down a bit off the back of the handle here until it can fit in there. Now I could do that any number of ways, but with a file or a knife, but not really too worried about it. So just a little bit of shaving here with the knife will be enough to at least see where we're at, and then I can clean up a little bit more later. Okay, so now once that's a little bit thinner, and I also cut off the peg that was on the other side. I think honestly that peg that was on the other side might have also been getting in the way, but we made that just a little bit thinner. Let's see if that is enough, or if we need to cut a little bit more. It's just barely fitting on there. I think I'm gonna shave just a tiny bit more, just so that that's not having any undue stress. But at least for now, it is able to hold on to the rifle there like that. It's the angle is a bit odd. I might try to maybe do something a little bit more about the angle of that, but we'll see later on. But as for a rough draft, at least we can get the idea of kind of how that's gonna look. Needs some cleanup there, everything, a little bit of sharpening up, but for the time being, that's looking pretty good. But we're not quite done. There's something more that I want to do. It's kind of a shame to just use the shields from the Geara Dogas, and then I just have the full Geara Doga kits left over and don't really have a particular plan for those. So I figure, why not build those up as well as escort units for this? Well, I already had them snapped up obviously because I reviewed them, but have them as like escort units for the DJ. Now the thing is, they're going to be looking a bit strange as they're much larger than the DJ just in terms of their overall size. They're very big mobile suits, and in canon the Geara Dogas don't actually come along until later on. But I suppose what I could do is just not have them actually paired up in like the final presentation of this, just keep Char's DJ on his own, and then just have these as like a separate piece. But anyway, I just want to talk about these for a moment because I'm going to be painting them up at the same time. Anyway, working on them at the same time. And I want to ask your guys' opinion. So as you can see on here, I've got some custom weapons on them. These are just parts from different build custom sets. This one here, this big long axe halberd sort of weapon. And then this one, I've got one of the Armblood Orphans swords here. So I'm wondering if I want to use some custom weapons like this, or use just kind of some of their original weapons. And when I say custom weapons like this, I mean these, not any other ones. I looked through a bunch of different HG weapon options that I have, and these were the ones that I ended up liking the best. So it's either those options or some original options. Have one with just the 2 beam axes, and the other, the Resident Snyder version. And both of them without the commander antenna, just because they're meant to be a team. I guess not really meant to be commanders, but if I do them as a separate thing, not together with Char, they don't have to be non-commander escorts. They could be commander types, I suppose, or at least one and not the other. But anyway, for the Resident Snyder one, have it with its just regular beam rifle. Obviously, they're not going to stay in these colors, and it's not going to be one as like a Resident Snyder one. They're basically just going to be a set of 2 Geara Dogas with those custom weapons that I showed you guys before, or with just these weapons here, the double beam axes, and then one with just the beam machine gun. So let me know what you guys' thoughts are about that in the comment section down below. That's it for this work in progress video. I'll work on some of the seam line removal and cleanup and everything on the DJ, and there's a little bit more work we're going to do on that before it's going to be ready to paint. So we'll have another work in progress video coming up for you guys as soon as I can. Let me know what you think about the weapon options here for the Geara Dogas, and thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.